Welcome back. We've been telling you about the across-the-board spending cuts that are just days away, and now a key Republican senator is calling on the White House to stop an administrative effort to highlight more government spending. Let me explain. Senator Tom Coburn has written a letter to the White House asking officials to cancel what he says is a planned 100-city tour designed to help local governments apply and get more federal money. So while Congress is trying to find ways to cut spending, is this critical of the administration? Does it make sense to do both? Deneen Borelli is the director of outreach for Freedom Works and a Fox News contributor, and Chris Kofinis is the former chief of staff to West Virginia Senator Joe Manchin. Guys, welcome.
Hello.
Morning.
It's a little confusing because on the one hand, we're talking about these cuts. On the other hand, we're talking about representatives of all these government agencies visiting state to state. They've only done one so far to help them apply for and get more federal money. Deneen, where's the money going to come from?
Jamie, clearly this is the Obama dependency tour. I mean, what we should be looking at are ways that we should be cutting spending. But we know Obama wants to fundamentally transform America. The more Americans depending on government, the better for him. We are already spending over $75 billion for food stamps. Over 47 million Americans depend on food stamps. $2 billion for cell phones. It's the Obama dependency tour, and I think it's absolutely outrageous the way that our country is spending money that we don't have. It's a way to gain votes.
Well, Chris, let me ask you about the other side of it then. Obviously, even with sequestration, there will be money spent, and so these representatives from a lot of different agencies will go and meet with states and see what's really necessary and help them get it. What's your thought on that?
Well, you just explained it just right. Here's the reality of how government works. I mean, these kind of government programs, aid to local states, they happen under Republican administrations. They happen under Democratic administrations because the government is still going to spend, even no matter what you want us to cut. If you cut the next $1 trillion or $2 trillion, we're still going to have a budget roughly around $3 trillion every year. There are government programs to help first responders, to help local economic development. That, I think, is separate from the more important discussion of how do we cut government spending in a responsible way. Well, here's the facts. The facts are when you look at discretionary spending, it's the lowest percentage of GDP since the Eisenhower administration. If you want to cut and not have a dramatic impact on the economy, on the American people, on states, as governors have mentioned all about today, then you've got to do it in a responsible, balanced fashion. I think the fundamental problem the Republicans have is they have a dependence on tax cuts that don't make sense when you have such a significant economic and fiscal problem facing the country. You can't just keep giving tax cuts to the wealthy and think that's going to somehow turn around an economy. It's not going to work.
What we need is real tax reform, and that is lowering, making the tax base level playing field so that everyone has skin in the game. How about a flat tax so that everyone is involved in this and stop redistributing our wealth? Our government can't even cut 2% from spending. I think it's absolutely outrageous. But you know what? The Tea Party people will be waiting for this tour to come about in these cities across the country. We'll be there waiting because we want less spending and we want lower government involvement in our lives. You can't keep spending money that we don't have. That's the fact.
Chris?
Well, listen, I hate to burst your bubble, but if the Tea Party was such a powerful political force, you was shown it in the last election. You're losing in state after state that you should have won. You lost at the national level.
The Tea Party is well on the case.
I didn't interrupt you, so let me finish.
Deneen, let Chris finish.
The worse off our country is going to be in.
Chris,
so I mean, the fundamental problem I think facing the Tea Party is that they don't make mathematical sense. You cannot have a multi-trillion-dollar deficit and debt problem that you can solve on spending cuts.
Doesn't make mathematical sense.
Let me jump in for a second, and I appreciate that you're so passionate about the topic. That's why you're here on both sides. Deneen, and I want you to respond, Chris. What about closing some loopholes? Deneen?
Listen, Obama has given more money to his crony capitalist friends. What about that? I mean, the fact that we need how about a flat tax? This way, everyone has skin in the game. We have over, 50% of Americans not even paying federal taxes in our country, that's part of the problem as well. Don't bring out first responders and play on people's emotions and try to gin up public opinion by playing on emotion that the police aren't going to be there when we need them.
Well, some of these cuts involve
now.
airline safety too, Chris. But what about closing some of those loopholes? Do you see that as a bipartisan effort, perhaps, to take a really good look at those? And would that save us some money that then we can spend on the things we must?
Listen, I think, I would say that you have to do something dramatic in order to get spending in control. The question is, what do you do? And I think in terms of loopholes, absolutely, I think you can have tax reform. A flat tax doesn't work because it's regressive. It hurts those who don't make much very hard, and it basically helps those at the top end. Putting that aside, I think you have Republicans and Democrats that agree that there has to be some kind of tax reform. But by the way, the president proposed tax reform. The president is still pushing tax reform. It's Republicans that are walking away from that. And they're walking away from that because they've come to the conclusion they want to see the sequester cuts go through, and they want to see what the impact is.
All right, gotta go.
And I think that's the unfortunate part.
Gotta go. We'll have to watch this week to see if they do go through. So far, most of the predictions, at least on this program, have been that they will on both sides of the aisle. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jamie.